So I was saying I'm reading compliance over, or connection over compliance, and how it's been geared, especially like written over this past year. So during COVID, written for teachers as kids go back to school, how to connect first rather than going for compliance or like using discipline, because we have to make them feel safe, right? And this last year hasn't felt safe for very many families. It goes in like the whole first chapter is just stats about like increased in like divorces, increased in like family, just basic family trauma in every way, shape, and form, how racism is on the rise and all these things because everybody's been locked down and scared. All these things are like kind of compiling. And it was really interesting because they made a good point. They're like, you look at discipline and you look it up in the dictionary. I might actually do it. What does it say? Let's see. I'm gonna look the meaning of discipline up because I want to get it right. Spell it first, right? First, Cat. Discipline. The practice of training people to obey rules or code of behavior using punishment or corrective disobedience. Which is like to comply, to just do it, to not think about it, to just, that's not what we want to teach kids. But it comes from the root word disciple, which is to teach, which is to share knowledge. So how did we get so far from sharing knowledge to ordering people around and wanting compliance?
You know, what comes up for me with that is thinking about being an adult in this time, and my parents doing the best that they could at that time, right?
Oh, for sure. They only could do what they know. They can't do better until they know better.
It was all structure, rule. And then somewhere along the way, we started to learn like, oh, our emotions can't get shoved down because it creates sickness.
Right. Yeah.
And now we're learning that, oh, we need to express ourselves. But for me, every time you share something, Kat, I'm always brought back to like, whoa, that still pertains to me as an adult, not just as an adult who wants to teach a child or who is raising children, because I'm not, but as an adult, as a human being, connection over compliance is like absolutely, it's the theme of what's going on right now, even in, can we remember that we're all humans rather than it's us versus them? Can we have that connection and see that people are coming from fear or what's going on for them rather than it being like comply to the rules? Can we have some compassion? Can we have that connection and then decide how to move forward?
So. No, you're right. That's like the heart of everything. Like the heart of a human being is relationship, right? Is that relationship piece of being like, we want to belong, we want to be heard, we want other people, we want to hear other people, we want to have a community, right? Like that's who we are as a race. And when we lose that, that's when all this chaos, when we go into fear, that's when all this chaos starts. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this past year, Kareem, hey, I just want to give you the heads up, we are recording.
That's perfectly fine. I consent 100%.
Perfectly. I was just, this is my friend Terry, and I was just telling her about the latest book I've been reading, Connection Over Compliance. And how it's all book geared towards teachers, helping them prepare for this return to school after this past chaotic year, and how to connect first rather than having to change the dynamic, like the way they're disciplining or rewarding. They talk about how stickers or marbles in cups actually stress kids out, because behaviors aren't necessarily, or 99% of the time, not an intentional thought. right? They're reactive.
Yeah.
They're an impulsive reaction that they can't stop. So
Yeah. And my kiddo does not respond well with those kind of like incentive based disciplines. They actually stress him out a lot. And he puts more pressure on himself, and then he shames himself if he's not doing well enough, and it's a
and then it just,
competition. So
it's that
yeah.
competition piece, right? Like
Mhm.
Susie Sue over there has 10 stickers, and I like, or even in the classroom, sometimes kids get upset. Well, he just got a sticker for putting his shoes in the cupboard. I have to get an A on a test to get a sticker, right? So there's this you're almost dividing the class without intentionally doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a tricky thing to be like, they also don't hide the fact that you've got 30 kids in a classroom. It's really hard to meet each one of those 30 kids' needs
Yeah.
at any
Yeah.
point in time, right? So
Well, if I may, I just want to kind of say thank you for hosting this space to kind of have these discussions, because I saw this pop up and I thought, oh, I mean, this may not be for me because my child is going into grade 4, but I think I need a refresher and some skills and tools and techniques and things just to kind of even different shift of thinking, because this has been a hard couple of years. And
for sure.
even last year was really challenging. And
Oh, I can only
it's
imagine.
and my just a little background, my kiddo is definitely neurodivergent, and he struggles with social interactions mostly. And lately it's been all about he can't he shouts everything, he yells, he's not he's so when he's frustrated or dysregulated, he doesn't um communicate respectfully, and we're really trying to hammer that home. And so we've had like a few of the play dates we were on kind of didn't go over very well because there was lots of yelling. And so and thinking that school is also, we have this extra layer of COVID and masking, and and I know that the teachers do the best job they can, like you said, with a class of 30, or I think there's almost 30 kids. But then they're literally meeting each one where they're at, and there's all sorts of different things going on. So I just wanted to, and apologize for my being a little tardy, but yeah, and just I love what you were saying about connection over compliance. It's so important to, like, I think I should put it on my sticky note where I have like my daily like positive affirmations and things, because it's so easy in the moment when you're emotionally dysregulated to go to that place of like discipline or
just do it because I said,
repetition, like, just do it because I said so.
Well, and this is actually a really great discussion. Not exactly where I saw this going tonight, but I'm totally open, because I had originally thought I was going to come up and have like slides, and I was like, no, I don't want this to be a lecture. I want this to be a discussion about like what's going on in your world. Let's figure this out. And like the first thing that you said, like catching yourself in the moment. I just had this discussion with another client earlier today. He's like, now that I look back at that situation, I could have totally brought my child down if I had only taken a breath myself and said, hey, do you want to go hang out in the hammock? If I had taken that. So we talked about a couple of different strategies. One being just noticing when you're dysregulated or your child's dysregulated and knowing where his calm space is. For them on the boat, it is a hammock. So whenever I'm just build like an automatic response. It's going to take time, but as soon as you're dysregulated, you go to the hammocks. Even the moving from where you are to the new environment to the hammock might be enough to de-escalate the situation, but it also gives you both time to be like, okay, so what do I really want to say in this moment? Or what message do I really want to make? How do I want to guide them? What do I want them to learn from this experience? And sometimes it's just like, where can I meet them where they're at? So that like half the battle for his son is being seen, heard, and valued. Soon as you can say, I understand you're upset, that I want you to know that I understand that, but that's outside of my control. Is there something that we can come up together with, like to do together? His son is older, so we can have those conversations. Like, how can we, do you have any ideas of how this could go better, or we could do instead? Or the second one is declaring the breakdown. I can tell right now that I'm really upset, and I might say something that I don't mean. I'm not thinking clearly. I need 5 minutes. Which is, it takes huge as a parent to admit, like, I'm not in a good place right now. And I've more than once I've done it when I've been with a family or a client. I'll be like, hold on, buddy, I'm not thinking straight. I need some time. And even me just saying that often gets the kids going. It's kind of like when the kids scream and I scream back. And then they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that's how loud that was. But when I going back to your son, if he's already loud, that's something you might want to ask the OT about. Because if he's already loud, he might be already anxious. So that his cortisol levels might already be like elevated. So something like, I'm only an assistant, so I couldn't diagnose and tell you what will work. But an OT will be like, safe and sound protocol is one that I've heard works really great with some kids. It's basically headphones, and you do it, I don't know the extended, it like starts off as 10 minutes and it's like half an hour daily. It works up to, and it's literally music that just cuts out. And that it just trains their nervous system not to freak out, because you can see, like, what the first little guy I ever did this with, he'd be coloring, and every time the music stopped, and it was like the wheels on the bus, but every time the music stopped, he would stop coloring and be like, and then as soon as it started again, he would color away. Right? So and it just trained his nervous system not to have that reaction. There's also compression wear, which is like deep pressure. Like, instead of a weighted blanket, which you really have to monitor, and like weighted vests and stuff, you can get compression wear, which is like, I don't know, athletes use it all the time.
It's like, it's tight and really like an Under Armour, I think it's called, right?
It's something you could ask about. The other thing is, the best thing you could do with your son is get him to build a really strong relationship with the EA in his room. And this is something that I was going to mention. You are allowed to ask to go into the school early, to meet the teacher, to meet his EA, to find his cubby, to know where his desk is, to know how to get from his classroom to the bathroom, to the library, to the gym, so that he has an idea of the layout of the school, or to remind him or get him more familiar. That you have every right to ask the principal to go in a couple of days before school starts.
I'm planning on that next week. So
awesome.
Okay.
And I would just build that relationship with that EA, so that he at any point in time can say, and this is going to be the stumbling block, because this is even with my 15-year-old client, we really had to talk to the EA, being like, when she says she needs a break, you need to listen to her. You need to honor her words. When she asks to go to the bathroom for the 15th time, she doesn't actually have to go to the bathroom. The lights are too bright. The room's too loud. She's finding a acceptable way to leave the classroom and regulate. She will not leave to avoid something. She will stay there until she can't stand it anymore, because she doesn't want to be different. Right? So it's like knowing your kid, but also, like, at one other school, my kindergartner, and now, because I used to work with the EA and I have a really good relationship with her outside, she's like, I would have never known that there was any trouble at home, Kat. I would have never known she was even on the spectrum. Like, she's such a good kid at school. And I'm like, yeah, because 5 minutes outside the door, you know what breaks out, because she's held it together all day at school. But we built this relationship. So now she says, Mrs. I can't even think of her last name at the moment, because I call her Sarah. Mrs. Sarah, I need a movement break. She's like, oh, okay, let's go. And now like the meltdowns at home have stopped. She's so much more flexible with her friends. It's that advocating piece, being like, it's okay to be different.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like I have another little guy that goes way back. This was when I first started working as a BI. They just put a trampoline in the back of the classroom, and it was there since kindergarten. So the kids just got to know that that's what Billy or Bobby or whatever the kid's name was did. So of course it was a little bit, the teacher's like, I realize it's going to be a novelty, but I told any of the kids that whenever they needed a movement break, they could just go jump on that trampoline. And she said the first week there was hundreds of kids on it all the time. And she says as the novelty wore off, only the kids who needed it, and some of those kids didn't have diagnoses, right, learn to use it. So if you incorporate those things into your everyday classroom, which is something I'd love to bring to teachers, being like, if you just make this an everyday thing available to all the kids, then they'll feel seen, heard, and valued. And like that's the one thing I would stomp. We will do another one of these around IEPs, but that is the one thing that I would strive the most for, is to build that connection with his EA, so that he is honored when he asks for a break or he needs something, or maybe he can't label what he needs. Maybe he doesn't know. He can just say, EA, I feel funny. Right? Because that's always my biggest piece, is becoming their own advocate.
He had a really fantastic EA almost for 2 years that he got very, very close to, and then that one lady retired, and so and then there was a shift, and then he's had the same EA for the last 2 years. And the trouble is that he's at that age now where he doesn't, like you just said, you nailed it, he doesn't want to be different than the other kids. He doesn't want to have to take a break. But so his last teacher was amazing. I'm really grateful we had him, because he'd say, okay, Flynn, I need you to do a job for me.
Right.
And he would send him to go do a task, and he's very task oriented. So that was great. And he's like, here, bring these Post-its to to the principal.
Take this basket of library books to the library. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was really good. And but I think that inevitably we have had opportunities to sit down with EAs and teachers and support staff in the beginning of the year, but it's just about reaffirming that and saying, okay, like, are these strategies working? What's working? What's not working? So yeah, and I think that there is just, as a parent, you have so much fear, especially when we've been navigating this now since he was 18 months old, really. Like that's when he had his first OT. That's when he's had his first assessment. And so it's, I always feel like I have to go into mama bear mode, but in different ways, because he's now developing his, where his age appropriate stuff is. So yeah, no, it's, I'm just taking some notes. I'm just really appreciative of all these pieces.
Yeah. So we can, I've made a nice little list, but we can look at some of the things you can do at home. I know that he's in grade 4, but it might actually be a really great way to, like, as my RDI consultant or my relationship development intervention consulting is jumping out at me right now, being like, preparing a lunch together could be a really great way to connect, to build skills, like building lunch, picking out clothes the next day together, are all ways of you just, it's like that touch point. I'm here with you. We're going to do this together. So whatever might be going on in his little brain might just come spitting out, right? Because you've given it the space, but you also have a task. And I always want to remind parents that in my world, the task itself comes second to the relationship and the connection. There is always the goal under the goal, like the goal you think is folding laundry. There's usually a goal of referencing or connection or a relationship goal that we're actually working on, and the life skill is a bonus. All right. Yeah. So just giving him that time, and it allows him, like, you can start, some kids are not really flexible. So I start being like, well, you like peanut butter sandwiches. What if we put one slice of banana in there and see what it tastes like tomorrow? What if we, and help, and just build some of the same but different flexibility in ways that feel safe, right? Because he's doing it with you.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to eat that piece of the sandwich, you can just take the banana off. If you get to school and that's not what you want, just leaving it wide open, but giving them the opportunity to experiment, to explore, and feel safe in doing so. What else do I have on my list? I mean, I would start now flipping their schedules around. If some families don't mix up the schedules, some families do. Over the summer, the kids get later and later and they sleep in. I usually try to gear it back, and the best way, it's a rough day, but if they're staying up late naturally, I would just get them up at the normal time you would for school. It'll be a super grumpy day, but they'll go to bed earlier again, right? And I'll get them back on that schedule. And I usually start that about a week to a week and a half before school starts. And I would start the school routine too of before you can watch TV, whatever, this might not be your schedule, but I would start like, make sure you brush your teeth, or let's get dressed, have breakfast, brush our teeth, then you can have screen time, or you can have your toys, or whatever your morning routine is, so that it gets that ball rolling. They've had some practice before you actually have to get out of the door. I don't know if your school, I know some elementary schools have. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you. I don't know if your school allows it, but I also have kids practice eating in the allotted time. I think it's really dumb. Don't even get me started on you only have 20 minutes to eat. But my ADHD children will be like, and then not have time to eat, or they'll be, so we practice, you've got 20 minutes, here's the timer. We need to be done our lunch by that time. And it just makes that easier. Like setting those routines back up is helpful. He's in grade 4, but this still might be something that you work on, is making sure he can put on his own shoes, jacket. Like if you can save the EA 5 minutes of time because he can dress himself and undress himself and get them into the cubby, every teacher in EA will thank you. The communication book, I love the to and from folder. This is what happened today. This is what went down. And I even get the kids involved with it. One kiddo just put smiley faces and upside down smiley faces, depending on how he thought the day went or how he was feeling at that moment. Because I don't want this communication book to be secretive, so that they think they're being tattled on, or I tell people to be very open, being like, in your book today, I'm just going to put that we really had a rough time on the playground, but we resolved it by, and I'm really proud of you for, right? But I don't want this book to be a secret, right? Because then they feel like they're being judged every moment of the day, and I don't want that either. But I also have run into schools where a kid comes home and is like, this happened tonight. Oh, and you're like, oh my God, what? So I want to know the real story. And all you hear is, we took care of it. Darn, I'm gonna have to move.
Kat, I'm losing your signal. I'm not sure if it's just me.
No, it's me. Hold on. I'm gonna take you to my living room. You guys are coming for a ride. I tried to stay in here so that my roommate could have the living room, but he's still in his room working himself. So we're gonna come in my living room.
Brilliant.
And we're just gonna sit on my couch or on my chair because I don't have any of my stuff here. And we have probably another hour before my computer will shut down on me because I've unplugged it. But I think we can cover it. This might actually be helpful, maybe not so much right now for your son, but coming to high school when he has to change books or junior high. I don't know. Some places have junior highs where they switch classes and stuff. Is having everything color coded. Everything that goes with math has a blue sticker on it. I've even gone to the point where every, like I've had 6 different pencil cases that went in each book. So there was always a pen, pencil, eraser, sharpener in each of them. So they didn't have to move them from one place to another. It was just always there. But I found color coding really helped. We've even gone as far in some of my older kids, like agendas, putting dots so that whatever classes they had that day, they had a dot to put their homework in. So just like that visual cue of like, what classes did I have today? I mean, this is might be a little bit advanced for your son. He is only in grade 4. I don't expect him to have massive movement and.
But oh no, this is good for planning for down the road. So yeah, that's the other thing. It's like when grade 8 comes, what happens then?
No, exactly.
Which is probably coming sooner than I'd admit. I mean, it's time does fly.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like one of the best things I've done with high school or junior high kids when they have to switch classrooms is we've gone in like that day or 2 early and found all the classrooms, literally walked to their locker, walked back to the classroom, walked to their locker, and just went from each classroom and back to the locker so that they knew how to navigate it from their locker. A few of the kids, for the first couple of weeks, we had them moving before the rest of the people because it was too chaotic and they were getting lost. So like 5 minutes before the bell went, they would go to their locker and go to their next classroom so that they could find their own route without getting disoriented by the hundreds of kids going back and forth. That's something that'll give you a heads up for later. And then the other thing I always like suggest parents look at is like, how scheduled is your kid? Because I've met some really highly scheduled kids, and if they're masking, that's exhausting. So it's really important, especially for our neurodivergent kiddos, to get some downtime, to be like, this is just me and I'm just gonna sit here and play with my Lego, or I'm just gonna lick my my hanger, whatever it might be. Like we need to give them that space and that time. And sometimes we're like, oh, they want to do soccer. And sometimes the kids really do want to do soccer. They really all want to be engaged in these things, but we get them a little over scheduled. And I mean, that's something I could say about every child, actually, not just my neurodivergent kids. Boredom becomes like, that leads to invention, right? And creation. You're not bored. The light bulb never would have been made.
Yeah, typically we tend to not schedule a lot of extracurriculars. Right. If any, we do one a year. Last year was piano. Oh, nice. And he kind of came to a place where he got really frustrated in the rigidity of having to practice every day. And while he did like the sensory feedback from plunking on the keyboard and and hearing the music, those were all things he really enjoyed. He kind of just was like, nope, not doing this anymore.
Are you in Port Alberni?
I am in Port Alberni. Yeah.
Talk to Shauna. No, Krista Wells.
Krista was his instructor.
Oh, yes. I love her. Okay, so you're in good hands. I love the way she teaches music.
Oh, she frankly was, I think that was the best experience we could have had with him and music. He loves her and he wants to go back to her, whether it's piano, I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure that there's something that Krista can offer that will fill, because that's a safe person for him. We want to build that relationship and foster that so that later in life, when he doesn't want to come to mom and dad, because teenagers don't, Krista can be that safe person. And I know she would do that in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah. And she's so lovely. And I know her from a long time. So one of the things that I'm going to talk to her about is rhythm, because he really loves banging on drums. And they did some working on rhythms, and he knew all of his, he got the theory really well, but it's the structure that's hard. And I just respectfully, I'm not monopolizing your time.
Oh,
now,
no,
right?
no.
Okay.
No. Terry doesn't actually have any kids.
Oh, okay.
Just looking after her nephew right now, who is in the hospital. She's actually in a children's ward at the hospital.
Oh, but caretaking is is so, you know, that's heart work, regardless if they're biologically your child or not. So
I was actually, thank you. I was, if I may share, I was from, Dustin has special needs. He was born with Apert syndrome. And as I was coming back over here tonight, I was thinking about the day he was born and how I literally ran. I was married at the time, and my sister told me I was in the hospital with her, and the doctor, it was very traumatizing because he came out with an issue that the doctors didn't recognize. So they asked me all sorts of questions, and they rushed him off to intensive care and to an incubator. And I remember going back to my husband, who was still sleeping at the time, and going in, and I wasn't emotional then. And I just broke down and I started crying. And I was thinking about that as I was driving over here tonight. And I was like, why was I actually crying? And it was because it's so hard just being regular and normal, that I was just feeling all this love and compassion and sadness and empathy towards, what is this child going to come up through? So I'm just so grateful for, like, I'm learning every time Kat speaks. I learn so much from her in my own life, but just even how to relate to people in my world, and then with Dustin too. I do love, because Dustin is going back, he's actually graduated, but he has another year that he can go back into a group class. And I love the idea, some of the tips that you've given that I'm going to share. Actually, I was just messaging somebody who's going to be caretaking him for the next, about the color coding, making sure that he's there and before and going through the areas. Like these are such amazing techniques and skills that you're teaching Kat. So thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm glad that you're also benefiting from this, because I just love your support and the way you just keep showing up anyway. And it's really lovely. And the other thing that came up on my list that made me think of, mostly for your son in grade 4, is reminding him of the things he can control and the things he can't. He can't control who helper of the day is. He can't control fire drills. We can warn him, but they can't stop from happening. Right? I used to have a teacher who used to put a month out in advance. He would literally tell us on, like, because this kiddo was obsessed with calendars and dates. So they would write down fire drill, assembly, and if they knew what the assembly was about, they would put it in his calendar. So he knew, because he was always thrown off when the day's regular schedule in the classroom was thrown off by something. And he, fire drills, he knew that day after recess, he would put his headphones on because it was going to get loud, but sometime after recess and sometime before lunch.
Yeah. And I'm really, at this point, I'm looking forward to meeting whoever the new teacher is and talking about some of these pieces. I mean, I'm pretty sure he will still have an IEP.
Yeah.
And but those are always kind of, the goals are always changing. But I think he's learned to mask certain things, like you said, about like, and
I mean, little girls are exceptionally good at it, but little boys, I just don't think they give them enough credit.
He works really hard, I think, at making sure that nobody knows, but I can tell because it's those inflexible things like you were mentioning earlier about the adding something different to his lunch, or those little things. It's those little things which can be like kind of just amp him up. And so it's and I know that things like that, if those kind of unpredictable, unplanned things happen at school, he will come and tell us at home that day that something didn't go according to plan, or his pencil broke, or all these little things we think of in our brains as, oh, that's no big deal, but to him it is.
It's the end of the world. And those moments, those are the ones where we can help him. Like, that's where, like, implementing, one of my favorite things is, like, at the dinner table, 2 things that went awesome today, or like one, sometimes it's one awesome thing, something I learned, and something that was challenging. And I literally have everyone at the table so that it's normal. Even parents have challenges. Oh, I made a mistake today. And my boss helped me fix it, or whatever. That I was really nervous about this, sending this paper off, but then the magazine thought it was great. And just allowing them to see that we're not perfect either. We still have challenges, and just voicing that, how you overcame them, or how maybe you didn't. You're like, I'm still stuck. But I'm going to ask for help, or I'm going to
have to model that a lot better, because I tend to do the check-in, and it's more of just a report. But I don't often talk about the things that, were frustrating or struggling, which we should. So, I'm thinking, though, I have to dash away. I'm sorry. But I really wanted to get some time with you, so I really appreciate it. But
I'm glad that this was helpful. And honestly, feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions, or you just want to chat. Throw me a message. And in the next little while, in the next couple of weeks, we're actually, me and another parenting coach, I actually work with her son and her husband, because she cannot coach her husband. She's like, it just doesn't work well. So
that's another.
Well, and we're hoping to have we've come up with a subscription site, and being a founding member and stuff, we'll have a really big discount, and you might even be able to use your funding for it. But it'll be a place where I have office hours every Wednesday. You can pop in and message me. It's way more accessible than working necessarily with me on a regular basis, because that gets a little pricey depending on what other therapists you're using. But it'll be a community where you have access to all kinds of experts, all kinds of other parents, where you can just hey, toilet training, this is what I'm dealing with, or this came up at school, and just get other people's feedback and then support.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I really, really appreciate you extending that invitation. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to reconnect. So
oh no, for sure. And I will keep you posted as all this stuff comes out. But we definitely would love to see you join our community, because I think even the fact that you were ready to come on and be recorded and be like, hey, this is my life. This is what I love about my community, my Port Alberni crew. I was born and raised in Port Alberni, and I think that's why I have such a good connection with so many of the moms. But it's this piece of being this is my life, and I'm okay with it. I'm not going to pretend it's something else. It's not always easy. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. But, so I appreciate you showing up.
I really am very glad that I did. Yes.
I'm glad it was helpful. And like I said, reach out anytime. I am more than happy to bounce some ideas around with you, because this is what lights me up. When parents show up and say, hey, this is going on and this is what I've tried. What else do you got?
Well, you are definitely a shining light. I will say that. So, thank you.
Well, I am.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Terry. Yes. Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.